Hi folks, you're listening to episode 15 of the 59th Minute FPL podcast, hosted by myself, the FPL General. Recording on Tuesday the 25th of September. Gameweek 6 is behind us and we're looking ahead now to Gameweek 7. This week's podcast is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, hoping to blast it out in about 15 to 20 minutes. The reason for that is I'm going to be on the Fantasy Football Surgery podcast this week. A really good podcast, so keep an eye out for that one. I would imagine probably on Wednesday it should be available. So this week's podcast, I'm going to quickly do the shout outs as usual for the 59 minutes. Quickly review Game Week 6. 3 I want, which I introduced last week, so I'm going to do that again this week. Again, another new feature from last week, popular players that I'm going to avoid. So I'm going to look at 3 players above 20% who I'm going to avoid. Going to mention 3 differentials who are less than 5% owned. Look at captaincy for Game Week 6. Briefly mention my possible transfers for Game Week 7, I should say, sorry. And then I'll just finish off giving an update on the leaders of my mini leagues and as well as a fundraiser that I mentioned last week. So just going to give an update on that towards the end. So getting straight into it, one player played 59 minutes this week. So it was Burnley forward Vidra. So he completed 59 minutes. He did score before he went off, so not all bad. But again, he's a very lowly owned player. So just wanted to give him his shout out, his first 59th minute appearance of the season. A notable mention for Van Dijk this week, who managed 54 minutes and missed out on Liverpool's clean sheet. So Van Dijk owners getting unlucky there. I'm glad I shipped him in Game Week 2. And a notable mention for Aguero as well, so he just about got to 60 minutes before he was taken off. So 53 minutes last week, 60 minutes in this week. So we're getting lucky with Aguero. I'm not worried about him though. I'm not worried about his minutes. I'll be holding on to him. He's the best striker at the moment in my opinion, so he's going nowhere. So a quick review of my Game Week 6. So it was a good one. It was a green arrow. I managed to get 58 points having banked the transfer, so I was happy with that because I had to do without Mendy, David Silva and Danny Ings. So I was happy to get a green arrow under the circumstances, and glad I have two free transfers now for Game Week 7, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So a small green arrow from 337k to 309k, and I'm now on 368 points in total. So things went well. Wan-Bissaka, the special one again, 9 points. Madison has done well for me the last 2 weeks. I think he's got 8 points in the last 2 game weeks, so happy I got him in on wildcard. Salah captain, so I got that call right when you compare it to Aguero and Hazard, who I was also considering for captaincy. As I mentioned, no Mendy, Silva or Danny Ings, so I was down to the bare bones. I did manage to get 11 players out, but that included the likes of Bennett with 2 points and Ward with 2 points coming off my bench. Holebas did what Holebas does best, gets himself booked and doesn't keep a clean sheet, so 1 point from Holebas. I got Holebas wildcard 2 weeks ago and I think he's got me 0 points and 1 point, so I should have known better really not to go there. But again, his stats were good despite not getting the clean sheet. I'm expecting assists from him with his corners and his set pieces. Now he is on 4 bookings, so we could see him getting a suspension soon, but I'd probably end up holding on to him. Alonso clean sheet. Wilson trolled me again, taken off in 67 minutes, so I'm worried about him now. So that's my quick review of Game Week 6. Happy how it went and looking forward to 2 transfers in Game Week 7. And hopefully rising in the rankings again with another green arrow. Moving on to the new feature of 3 I want. So this is 3 players from my watch list who I want to get in soon. First one is Richarlison. I went for Madison on the wildcard because Richarlison was suspended, and I also didn't want Richarlison for the Arsenal fixture. Now I recorded the Arsenal game at the weekend and I watched it back today. Richarlison looked good. 4 goal attempts, and when I compare Madison and Richarlison, now if I owned neither of them this week, I think I'd be going for Richarlison. I just think over the course of the season I think he'll score better just on the eye test. I think Richarlison can get up to maybe 15 goals this season. But I do like both of them. I like Maddison. I think he's going to take over. He's got a set pieces, scored a free kick. He's on corners. So they're both really good options. And I'm not looking to do Maddison to Richarlison. I'm probably looking at getting both of them. So I'll talk about that a little bit later as well when it comes to transfers, and probably more so on the surgery podcast. So Richarlison's one player I want. Another one I want is Mitrovic. Probably should have got Mitrovic on my wildcard instead of Wilson, but financially it was just easier to get Wilson with what I wanted to do with the rest of my team. So haven't had another 2 weeks now to look at Mitrovic. He's a player I want to get in. He is the real deal. I think he's gone up to 7 million now. I'm a big fan of what I've seen of him this season from the eye test. He's got 5 goals in 6 games. I think he's behind. I think Aguero's the only striker who's had more goal attempts than Mitrovic this season. I think Aguero's had 31, Mitrovic has had 28. So the underlying stats are there as well. I like his fixtures. Fulham have Everton next, who concede every game. They've got Arsenal, who've only got 1 clean sheet this season. Then it's Cardiff, Bournemouth, Huddersfield. So it's a nice run for Mitrovic, and there's a very good chance I'll be getting him in for Game Week 7. The third player I want, I'll need to talk to my bank manager to get a loan or remortgage the house to get him. It's Harry Kane, 12.4 million. I just can't shake him from my mind this week. I have an itch to get him in now. He's got Huddersfield away and Cardiff at home, and then West Ham away. So it's a nice run of fixtures for Harry Kane. 9 points against Brighton. Now, didn't do an awful lot on the eye test again, but he got his penalty and he got his bonus points, and he had a few chances towards the end, which you would really expect Kane to put away. But one thing I noticed was after the Brighton game, he said it's the first time he's been happy with his game this season. So now might be the time to get Harry Kane in, if you can get him in easily. Now, for me, looking at my team, it's either Salah or Kane. So I could use my two free transfers to get rid of Salah and get Harry Kane, with a view maybe just for 2 weeks and then getting Salah back in after Kane's nice 2 fixtures. But realistically, it's never easy to do that, and it will probably involve hits to get Salah back in. So that might be enough just for me to hold on to Salah and maybe just avoid Kane. But I am going to think about it for the rest of the week. If I was to get Kane in, I'd probably captain him Game Week 7, Game Week 8. It's go hard or go home, I think, with Harry Kane. I know it is hard to look past Aguero for captaincy against Brighton, but I think if I was going to take the punt on Kane, I would probably give him captain. Moving on to just before I move on from Kane, back to Salah. Salah, a lot of people are saying, maybe now get rid of him. He's got Chelsea and he's got Man City, but I expect Salah to deliver in those fixtures. Now, he might not get huge returns, but I do think he'll deliver against the Chelsea defence and the Man City defence. I'm hopeful. So at this point, I probably am leaning towards keeping Salah. He impressed me again. I didn't watch the Liverpool game. I watched the highlights. He had a goal ruled out for offside. He had a one-on-one chance early in the game that he probably should have put away. So on another day, it would have been a big haul for Salah. I mean, we're saying that nearly every week, but I'm happy to hold him. Haven't kept him this long. I'm probably just going to hold on to him now. So that's 3 I want: Richarlison, Mitrovic and Harry Kane. Realistically, I'll probably only be getting 2 of those this week. Maybe even just 1. I haven't ruled out just making 1 transfer and maybe rolling the other transfer over. So I'll see later in the week. Moving on to the next feature, 3 popular players that I'm avoiding. So I'm looking at 3 players who have more than 20% ownership who I'm avoiding this week. So the first one, David De Gea, 21% ownership, 5.9 million, 1 clean sheet in 6 for Man United. So absolutely no interest in David De Gea. I don't think I need to elaborate any more on that. It explains itself. The second player I'm avoiding who is highly owned is Kieran Trippier at Spurs, 27% ownership. He's gone up to 6.1 million now. I see a lot of people moving early this week from Mendy to Trippier. I can see why you're doing that, because obviously I think Mendy dropped last night and Trippier rose. So People will know I'm not a fan of early transfers, especially when there is midweek cup games and we've got question marks over the likes of Mendy. So I'm happy to hold and lose the 0.1 to make a better informed decision on Friday. The reason I'm avoiding Trippier is mainly just down to rotation. Spurs have got big Champions League games. I think they've got Barcelona in between the Huddersfield and Cardiff games. So we're going to see rotation with Trippier, I'm sure. So that's enough for me just to put me off him. And the other thing about Spurs is, like United, I think they've only got 1 clean sheet in 6 this season. So you're kind of dependent on attacking returns for Trippier, which I don't really like either. Spurs are dependent on their third choice goalkeeper at the moment because Lloris and Vorm are out. So again, that's another thing that puts me off Trippier. The third popular player I'm avoiding is Sadio Mane. Now, I've avoided him all season. He's very highly owned at 42%. He's gone up to 10 million now. But he does have 2 blanks in a row, and he's got Chelsea and City next. So as a Salah owner, I'm not interested in a double up at the moment with Salah and Mane. So Mane is another highly owned player who I'm avoiding at the moment. Again, like Spurs, we could see rotation in the Liverpool team. Could be Salah, could be Mane. We just can't call it. We just need to make sure we have a strong bench. So that's 3 I'm avoiding: De Gea, Trippier and Sadio Mane. So just trying to rifle through these as quickly as possible. Keep the pod nice and short. Moving on to differentials. So 3 players who are owned by less than 5%. Now, I had some suggestions after last week maybe to change this percentage to less than 10%, but I'm going to keep it at 5% for now. So the first one is Nacho Monreal, Arsenal, 5.5 million, 2.1% ownership. A possible Mendy replacement for those who want to get rid of Mendy, maybe later this week. Now, I'm waiting hopefully to get an update on Mendy before I do anything with him, but Monreal is one to consider. The problem with Arsenal is clean sheets. Again, I think they might only have 1 clean sheet as well. I think the Everton one might have been their first one this season. So watching Arsenal this season, I have very little faith in them defensively. I'm not a fan of Mustafi. And they're insistent on playing out from the back with Peter Cech, who does not look comfortable. And I just think they're going to keep conceding goals when they're doing that. So Monreal, probably like Trippier, you're kind of looking for attacking returns more so than clean sheets. But one stat that stood out to me this week from Gameweek 6 was that Monreal had more touches in the final third than any other defender. So he does get forward. He had a very good chance in the Arsenal game. It was well saved by Pickford. So he gets in the box. I think he will get more goals this season, and he's always got assist potential as well. If Arsenal could tighten up a bit at the back, I'd be more interested. Another Arsenal differential, Aaron Ramsey, 1.3% ownership. A player I've always liked in FPL. He's 7.4 million now. He started the last 4 games, so it looks like he's pretty nailed on in the Arsenal midfield. He got 2 assists against Everton, his first attacking returns of the season. So he's one I've added to my watch list this week, and he could be a nice differential for those looking for someone in midfield. I do still prefer the likes of Richarlison and Maddison, and maybe even Fraser as well, but Ramsey's definitely one to consider and one I'm going to keep an eye on. The third differential, less than 5% owned, Jamie Vardy, 8.9 million. He's only got 4% ownership. He scored a goal and he got an assist at the weekend. He's more than likely on penalties. I know Maddison scored the last one, but Vardy was off the pitch. I would expect Vardy to be on penalties. Leicester have one of the best fixture runs in the league. I'm just getting it up in front of me here. Apart from Arsenal, in a couple of game weeks' time, they've got a very nice run right up to Christmas. So I'm happy to hold on to Maddison, and Vardy's one I'm interested in as well. I may even look to double up. So Vardy's a proven FPL asset, proven Premier League striker. Doesn't go away in international duty, doesn't have any European games to worry about rotation. He's going to play every week, so he is one I'm going to keep an eye on as well. So definitely worth considering Jamie Vardy with Leicester's fixtures. Moving on to, I'm just having a sup of tea here. I'm going through this very fast. Looking at captaincy for Game Week 7, I had a quick look on Fantasy Football Scout at the captain's poll before I started recording, Aguero is running away on 65%. Harry Kane is second on 9%. Richarlison, interestingly, is third on 5%, and Salah was fourth with just 2.5% ownership, 2.5% of the votes. So at the moment, my armband's on Aguero. It's unlikely to change. The only reason it would change would be if I brought in Harry Kane later in the week, which at this point in time I don't see myself doing. But I think it's not one to overthink this week. Aguero home to Brighton. I would expect City to run up, 4 or 5 goals again in that game. So I think it's a no-brainer this week. Not one to overthink. Richarlison, I would find it hard to trust him with captaincy because he can be quite wasteful at times. And I definitely wouldn't captain him over Aguero at home to Brighton. Salah has Chelsea, which is why he's only got 2.5% of the votes. But I think Salah can do well in that Chelsea fixture. Now, he'll be up against Alonso more than likely on that right hand side. Alonso, it'll be interesting to see how much attacking he does when he's got Salah to deal with. So there could be space there for Salah to exploit against Chelsea. And I'm hopeful of returns from Salah, but again, I wouldn't captain him over Sergio Aguero this week. That's enough on captaincy. Again, with the midweek cup games, that could change things. So I expect most Premier League sides, to play weekend sides in the cup, but we do have to keep an eye on it. For example, if David Silva played EFL Cup this week, I'd be slightly worried about him playing against Brighton then. So do keep an eye on the lineups midweek. Transfers, as I mentioned, I've got 2 free transfers. I don't really know what I'm going to do yet. I may just make one transfer and roll the other one. I could end up going crazy and doing a mini wildcard, doing 3 transfers for a -4, but that's very unlikely because I'm quite happy with my squad at the moment. So it'll be either 1 free transfer or 2 free transfers for me this week. Question marks over Mendy. If we get news that he's ruled out maybe for another couple of weeks, it's very annoying that we haven't got any concrete news. We don't know what's happening with Mendy. I have my suspicions that maybe it's disciplinary rather than an injury. We don't know. So hopefully we get some news this week. But if not, I will be tempted to move him on. Hopefully we get something from Pep or from someone on Mendy. Maybe something from himself is probably more likely than anything on Twitter. As I said, part of me is tempted to move Salah out for Kane for 2 weeks as part of 2 free transfers, but I just don't like the surgery it would require to get Salah back in later, when I'll want to probably use my free transfers elsewhere in my side. So the smarter play for me this week is probably just to improve my squad elsewhere and hold on to Salah. David Silva, I'm slightly worried about. I may move him on. Callum Wilson, I'm losing patience with. Might move him on for Mitrovic. Richarlison, I want to get in, but for who is the problem? Because I don't really want to lose Maddison. Holebas is a slight issue as well. He's on 4 yellow cards. Seems to get 0 points or 1 point when I own him. So he's another I could move on. So lots of questions and no answers from me really on transfers yet. I'm definitely waiting until Friday before I do anything this week. As I mentioned, Mendy's dropped I think already this week, but that doesn't bother me. It's points over pounds for me always. A phrase I've stolen from Jonty this season. So that's most things covered. I wanted to shout out the mini league leaders. So Elite 64. Last week it was Phil Ampleford, number 1. He's been overtaken now by Dan Bennett. So well done, Dan. Dan is ranked 970th overall. So a superb start to the season from Dan. A top manager, already has 7 top 10,000 finishes. So if you come across Dan Bennett on Twitter, be sure to give him a follow. My free to enter mini league for all, the Beat the General mini league, Andrew McKinnon is still number 1. He was number 1 last week and he holds on to number 1 this week with an overall rank of 34th. So absolutely superb. So the winner of my Beat the General mini league, which has thousands, probably 5,000 or 6,000 managers in it now, so it's a very hard league to win. But especially if you've had a good start to the season, or if you intend to finish in the top 100. Get yourself into that league, because the winner gets a place in Elite 64 for next season. So you'll find the mini league code on my Twitter in my bio. So get yourself into that one. That's the mini leagues covered. I wanted to mention, I mentioned on last week's podcast about how I'm starting to raise awareness for men's mental health on my Twitter account. With 95% of a male following, I see it as an opportunity to do some good in this area. So a charity I've mentioned is the Cam Zone. So it's Cam, CALM on Twitter. So check them out. And I want to do some kind of fundraiser this season. I've emailed Cam this morning, and told him what I want to do this season, just to get some advice from them on how best to go about it. So my initial idea for a fundraiser would be to set up a mini league to fundraise for Cam. So it would be free to enter the mini league, but then I would set up maybe a Just Giving page for Cam. So anyone who enters the mini league can donate, £1, £5, £10, £100, whatever they want to donate. Just for entering the mini league, they can donate to the Just Giving page, which then would go directly to Cam. And I just think as an FPL community, there's a lot of good people in the community. There's been a lot of negativity on the community maybe over the last couple of weeks and months, but this is something where we could all pull together and do something really good for a really good cause. So I'm hopeful that when I start doing that people will row in behind me, with likes and retweets, and people will donate to the charity as well. And I just think there's huge potential there for us as a community to do something good. So I haven't really finalised plans yet, but what I'm thinking is a mini league that starts maybe after the international break. So there's 8 game weeks gone, so then it would be a fresh start for everyone from game week 9. So 30 game weeks. Everyone starts on 0, so the scoring in the mini league would start from game week 9. So you could enter your current FPL team into that league if you've got a free league spot, or if you don't, you could just create a new team for the purpose of this fundraiser mini league. And obviously I could do a 1 game week competition, which a lot of people do. I could do like a Christmas competition, over 4 or 5 game weeks. But I just think if I do a mini league that lasts maybe from game week 9 till game week 38, people can join it throughout the season and donate to the charity. So that way I think maybe I could raise more money that way, just leaving it open. Maybe start the league in game week 9 and maybe close it in game week 30 or something like that. And then obviously I would source prizes as well for that mini league, so hopefully people would get on board as well, maybe and sponsor prizes and things like that. So I'll keep you updated on that. Again, it probably won't start at least until game week 9. Another idea was maybe starting at 1st of January, just maybe a second half of the season competition. But let me know what you think. I'm open to ideas as well on that, so let me know what you think would work best. So initially I'm thinking maybe start it after the international break, so from game week 9 onwards, and people to enter maybe until around game week 30, just so we don't have someone swanning in the last 3 or 4 game weeks and winning it. So let me know what you think about that. Before I go, I just want to say thank you to all the new patrons who've signed up since last week's podcast. So the Slack channel is going really well. We're up to about 250 people on the Slack channel now, so it's a really nice community where we bounce ideas. We're all there to support each other, and the goal of the Slack channel is for each and every member of the Slack channel to achieve their best ever overall rank this season. And we've got a lot of people are doing really well this season. A quick look at the Slack mini league, I think there's around 60 people who are in the top 100,000 in the rankings. So hopefully the Slack is playing a part in that. And there's a lot of good FPL minds on the Slack channel now as well. It's not just me, giving advice in there. There's quite a few guys from the Elite 64 who I've invited to the Slack channel as well. Loads of people who've got loads of time in there, so it's a nice little community. If you want to get involved in that, check out the Patreon. It's patreon.com/FPL General. So any questions you have about Patreon, send me a message, send me an email. I'm not going to blab on about it every week on the podcast. What I will say is this week on Patreon, I'm doing a Patreon exclusive podcast, which will be available on Thursday, and I'll be doing a live stream for patrons on Friday night. So I tend to do live streams every Friday night for patrons. Any questions, let me know. I think that's everything covered. Hopefully this podcast is a little bit shorter than usual. I'm just looking, it's gone up to 25 minutes, it always happens. But keep an eye out for Fantasy Football Surgery later this week. I'll be on that one. It'll be a more in-depth podcast where we look at all the fixtures for Game Week 7, and I'll probably talk in more detail about my thoughts as well. So good luck in Game Week 7. Enjoy the rest of your week and be patient with those transfers. Sit on your hands for a few days. Cheerio, folks.